Now we tweet. And we're going to wait for a second for people to arrive. We're going to have a nice stream as the camera goes in and out of focus for no reason whatsoever. Let me check that everything is. What are the settings? Okay, the settings, camera, audio, general. Okay. No one's here, which means I'm worried it's not being public. Let me see. Yeah, okay, it's public. All right, people. I was not having a good day. I wasn't feeling it. And then I came home and I had 6 boxes of stuff, this stuff. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go through the things that I got spite funded because there's a fun little history lesson and people can enjoy and we can have a little chat. And then we could go back to our lives as if this had never happened. I'm just going to give it a second until we get 100 people here, and then I'm going to start flapping my gums. I hope you're all having fun with what's going on across this country. I mean, things could have gotten really, really bad, really, really easily, and they didn't. And I am glad of that. I don't want to say I told you so, but here we are. What's the noise about the CHAZ in Seattle? Yeah, I covered it today on Nightshade, and I have to thank Jackie for keeping me updated on what's going on there. It was really a hoot, to say the least. Okay, we got almost 100 people here. It's telling me 97. Just give it a minute. I've got some big news for this Sunday. I've got some real big news. I've been doing these public hangings, right, with me and friends of mine. And this one has been a long time coming. It's going to be Moldbug. 8 o'clock this Sunday, 8 p.m., the 14th. Get your red pills ready. We're doing this. Me and him having a nice long combo. I'm sending you to a brick to smash any windows you want. Well, that's going to go for Lego bricks because I am building a Fabuland Fantasyland. Okay, let's go through some of the cool things that I got in the mail in recent days, and I'll tell you why they're all interesting and of importance. I'll do them in, what kind of order do I want to do? I don't know. I'll just do them in the order that they're next to me. So, as some of you know, went down the rabbit hole of the Harlem Renaissance. Read all the books, the history books, the novels. I think it is something that is often touted in corporate fantasizing about Black history, but there's so much there to unpack and uncover. It's really, really interesting. And one of the most prominent artists no, that's not true. One of the most prominent artists of the Harlem Renaissance was someone named Aaron Douglas. Many of the books of that era, of that scene, the New York scene, will have his art on the dust jacket. It's very distinctive. He's not one of those people who is remembered today because, like, oh, we found this random Black artist. He's amazing. No. He was very innovative, very unique, very much a modernist artist, and just his work, I think, resonates very strongly. I was looking to see how to maybe get a dust jacket from that era and framing it. There's a magazine called Opportunity, which was, I think that's what it's called, which was the Journal of the Congress of Racial Equality, which was the Opportunity I'm thinking of? Congress Racial Equality. magazine. Hold on, this is important because they had some really, you know how like, what was it called? The Guardian? Hold on a second. This, trust me, this bears, I should have looked this up before. Aaron Douglas magazine cover. Because see, you know how like all your basic bitch friends, Opportunity is called Opportunity, correct? All your basic bitch friends, I'm just going to send you this link. Here's one example. All your basic bitch friends, is it not going? It's not clicking through. Ah, that didn't do anything. Hold on, let me do a better one. This is a great one. Here we go. Here we go. That's one. So all your basic bitch friends who have those ads from like French absinthe ads from the 1920s and the replicas, like this is the real stuff that you want. It's of that era. It's something you haven't seen. It's very strong and bold in its design. So I was looking around, and then I did find a paperback from 1936 that he had done the cover to, called The Story of the American Negro. I'm getting it framed, but you can see how this is 80 years old now, but you can see how this would look so cool on the wall. And you could see his style is something that has been very influential. You've seen this kind of look. It's something almost ancient Egyptian about it, the way the figure stands with the torso kind of at a 90 degree to the bottom half. The conflation of the foliage and kind of ancestry to the skyscrapers and industry. They love drawing industry in that era. So he really is, if you look him up, has a lot of great stuff. I'm going to have a nice frame for that because I have a room in my apartment, which I call the park. I've got AstroTurf, and I've got like magazine stuff where all the lowlifes are. So I've got Emma Goldman, William Lloyd Garrison, Liberty Magazine, and I'm going to have him, and next to him, I'll get to the super chats in a second. So the term punk, the punk scene, is obviously something that's extremely influential to me. I mean, the old school punk scene in New York and LA in the mid-70s. But it got, like many of these scenes, they didn't really have a name as they were starting out. Like it was just a scene, and then someone calls it something, and then everyone's like, okay, I guess we're punk. So there was actually a magazine called Punk Magazine. And issue 6 had Richard Hell of the Voidoids. He came up with the term Blank Generation for the song Blank Generation. And it's a great song because it shows the two ways. Actually, this ties into what Camus says, my metaphor about Camus. So it's often at face value taken. The chorus goes, I belong to the blank generation. And people think it means empty, pointless, right? Like nihilism. He meant it as, or maybe he meant it as both, but he says he meant it as fill in the blank. Like we could be whatever we want. We are not defined by the Great Depression or World War II. So for a brief period, punk also tried to reappropriate the swastika. Sid Vicious very famously wore the swastika around the streets of New York. And it didn't really catch on because they're like, yeah, we're upsetting people, but this isn't really what we're about. But this is Punk Magazine number 6 with Richard Hell. So that's going to be hanging in there too. I got the black and red frame for obvious reasons. So I thought that was really cool. That's 40 years old now. Let me catch up with the questions, then I'll move on. No, you say these streams are to help others deal with the apocalypse. Do they help you too at all? Sure. First of all, I'm getting paid a bit. It's also useful feedback for people who consume my content, what they like and what they don't like. So that's very, important to have that feedback loop. It also helps me because, like, in my mind, if I haven't done anything today and I do a stream, I can check off, say, I worked today. So I'm not going to feel antsy for not having done any work. That's a great question. What do you think of Bob Chipman, the fascist eugenics supporting film critic leading us to the superior future? I'm not familiar with him. I'm sorry. Maybe I wouldn't be familiar with him, not by his name, but off the top of my head, it doesn't ring a bell. Gotta say, it's incredibly difficult not to swallow the black pill, given how the left seems to have completely won the culture war, and everyone from sports to military generals are bending the knee. Are you bending the knee? Everyone? Why do you care what generals are doing and athletes are doing? Let me ask you this. I'll answer you for one sentence. You can imagine right now someone who reads the New Yorker, who goes to their food co-op, and they're saying it's incredibly difficult not to swallow the black pill, given that the right seems to have completely won the political war. Trump is in the White House. Brett Kavanaugh is in the Supreme Court. Tom Cotton is writing op-eds in the New York Times. We're screwed. Do you hear how that person would sound? That's how you sound. But I'm going to get into that length at the book. Have some perspective. And you know what else? Let's suppose the left wins all of culture and all of politics. You can't find happiness in your life? Really? I think you could. You could certainly find more happiness than you have now. When companies bow to progressive activists, is it a short-term issue? Are they growing beyond cathedral control, leading to more progressive domination? So I talked about this a bit on Nightshade and on the shows with Dave. You don't want to be the first one to stop clapping for Stalin, right? So if everyone, this happened with the founder of CrossFit. Over the weekend, he said, we're not celebrating grieving for George Floyd's life. Don't give me one reason to do that, other than it's a white people thing to do. He got kicked out, or he retired, forced out, whatever you want to say. The point is, if M&Ms and Toys R Us, are they still a thing? I'm aging myself. And Sony are posting black squares, and I'm Domino's. Hey, Domino's, why aren't you putting up your black square? What are you trying to say? So it very much becomes you don't want to stand out, because then you become the target. They don't care. They don't care about white people. They care about black people. They care about selling their goop. This is what happened in the 80s with Arizona. Arizona didn't want to have a Martin Luther King Day. And everyone's like, oh my God, what are you saying? What? And they're like, what does he have to do with us? He was a Southern regional figure, and sure, it's great what he did, but should he really be the only American to have a day in his honor other than the two of the presidents? Oh, so what you're saying is, and they bend the knee. But that just how social control works under any society. It's just the function is currently, in many ways, the progressives are in control of the hegemony, but that is decreasing very quickly, in my opinion. And hopefully I've given you guys examples of how that is the case. Have you ever talked to Coleman Hughes? He's a mutual friend of Camille and my other favorite Jamaican, Desiree Campbell. I have not talked to Coleman. I think I know who he is. That name sounds familiar. Let me look him up. Coleman Hughes. He sounds very familiar. Wait, was he the one who was kicked off of, wasn't he kicked off of something? Was he kicked off of like CNN or something? I'm having fond, positive feelings toward that name, and I don't remember what context. All I see is a harmless windmill. Oh, that's pretty funny. Have you ever spoken with John McWhorter? I wish. Or Glenn Lowry? I have not spoken to Glenn Lowry, but John McWhorter's is the best. Very, very insightful. And it's another great example of this boomer-con idiocy where you think all Democrats are the same, or all black people are the same, or all black Democrats are the same. Like it's so uninformed and embarrassingly so. John McWhorter is not the same thing as Stacey Abrams. He's an academic. His book, which is right here, Losing the Race, is the most savage attack on African-American culture that you're going to see, and placed from both empathy and sympathy, that you're going to see. If you're not willing to kill looters, you're threatening them with free food, shelter, security, and time with their buddies. Okay. I hardly endorse this event or product. Okay. Hold on. I missed one, I think. Ford stood up against the Blue Eagle used by FDR. That's true. But FDR was in a much worse situation economically, number one. And number two, that happened. And that happens. Did that end well for them? I mean, this is there are cases, absolutely. But I think post-1950s, there's very much a consensus about especially when the corporations get bigger and bigger, follow the pack. What book should I be reading if I want to understand progressivism? both historically and as a contemporary movement if possible. Come on, man. Seriously? I don't have another book to recommend that would really be that I think I don't want to say insightful. I do want to say insightful into the mindset. A lot of it is stuff I'm still unpacking as it evolves. I think most of the conservative critiques of progressivism are very, at least historically ignorant. They're not doing their homework. And like I had this tweet, and is this something, like about abortion? It's like, sure, I want to kill babies, but I also want to control women's bodies. So a lot of conservatives' attacks on progressivism aren't coming at it from how progressives see themselves, but how progressives see them from their point of view. And that is not an insightful analysis, because that's not going to help you unpack and influence people. If Ayn Rand were alive today, do you think the two of you would get along? Yes, but I would have to do a lot of genuflecting, which she has earned, and I would be happy to do that. Do you think, plus, you know what? She's Russian, so I think there'd be this little bond between us ahead of time on some level. Do you think a stateless society is also a society free from politics? Absolutely not. Same as separation of church and state, there's religion, of course. Politicians would exist. They would be pointing out problems and rallying people to solve them. Whatever your answer, is that desirable or lamentable? If something is inevitable, it's neither desirable or lamentable. But I would say it's certainly desirable. It is very desirable for there to be busybodies in a culture whose job it is to be like, hey, these people, this is the best argument for leftism, and this is leftism at its best, where there are people who fall between the cracks, and these are annoying assholes with too much time on their hands, but they're like, guys, look what's happening to these people. No one cares about them, and their lives are being ruined through no fault of their own. That's a really good thing, I think, and it's a sign of a healthy society when someone's like, oh, crap, this poor guy, lost his job, and he's a hard worker, but now he doesn't have hands. Like, let's kind of chip in and buy him robot hands. I think that is humanity at its best, although Miss Rand would disagree. Perhaps, or maybe not. I don't know. She's weird with this one. Coleman went up against the reparations debate, vocally against it. His argument is that he's a descendant of slaves, but he grew up middle class. Yeah, the reparations debate, I think, is very phony on all sides, because if reparations were reparations in the legal sense, then you would have to say, okay, here's your check for reparations. Now you have to stop talking about racism because you've been made whole. That's what reparations means. No one is claiming that. So it's a very foolish argument. Why do the police subsidize looters' existence? You have to ask them, Noah. Yeah, oh my God. You're right, though. Yeah. I'm getting blackpilled. It seems like we are losing you to moderate conservatives. The friendliness with Mr. Smith is alarming. Oh, no. That's just being subversive Jews. It's all for show. We're just working behind the scenes at CNN to try to undermine America and balkanize it. Is ignoring the looting a form of reparations? There's a lot of alt-right thinking in that regard, that this is kind of white guilt. And I think there's something to that, and it's very distasteful to me. What are your thoughts on the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone? Oh, my God. This is the kind of stuff I haven't gone down that rabbit hole. I've been too busy going on the jams and salsas rabbit hole, to be honest. But this is the kind of thing that makes me so proud of American and show that we live in the best timeline. And it's also the kind of thing that the corporate press is going to have trouble grappling with, because they don't know how to present innovative, albeit use a euphemism, lefty ideas to the masses. So anything like to the left of Biden, maybe, like they don't know what to do about it. So they either pretend doesn't exist, but thanks to social media, you can't. So it's kind of like, I don't know what's going on. So it's very, very funny in that regard. Okay, we're caught up, I think. Yes, sir. God, Sunday's going to be so awesome. Okay, next. This was, if Trump wins re-election in November, do you think the riots will be worse than what we've just seen? Let me point something out. These riots, I talked about this with Arthur Herman on the last hang I did with him. These riots could have been a lot worse, especially in terms of dead people. Now, we've seen the footage, and the footage is not funny, and it's very disturbing. But remember, I think it was a Ferguson, wasn't it? Some guy got pulled out of his car and killed. We saw what happened, I think, in Los Angeles during the riots. There were many such incidences, and it was very, very ugly. Not that this isn't ugly at all, but when something is this nationwide and prolonged, and to thank God have the body count and injuries be so relatively low on all sides, we should really take a pause and be thankful. And I'm going to point something else out, because people have these knee-jerk analysis of politics. You know, like with North Korea, they're like, oh, it's going to be his sister. Like, name one other person in North Korean leadership. Well, it's going to be his sister. I don't know her name, but it's going to be her. People always have this thing like, oh, they're just going to riot. They're just going to riot. There weren't big riots after Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman got acquitted. And that, you would think, would really be an opportunity for rioting, and there wasn't. So I think it is very glib to assume that riots happen as always a reaction when there's bad news against Black America. That has not been historically the case. And to assume that all riots are the same and all looting is the same in terms of severity, duration, and we Where's the Fash Bro art? Well, I just showed you the swastika, Sebastian. Do I need to show you the Mussolini stuff too? Come on. We got to have a mask on here. I found you about 2 weeks ago and have been devouring your content since. I subbed to Compound Media and finally got a Twitter because of you. Well, you're going to be blocked in minutes, I promise you. I'm horrible. Ever chat with Tim Pool? Consider having him on your welcome. Yes, Tim was on your welcome when it was on Compound Media. If you look at the archives, they're there. In fact, I was supposed to be in Philadelphia in April to be on his show. Me and Tim are buds. I'm going to go there at some point. I'll drop him a line now, plan a trip, and do that show. I think he's terrific. My goal, and this is a wink to you, Tim. I'm not saying anything behind his back. I wouldn't say it to his face. My goal is to get him to crack a smile and crack up, because he's very much has that sour puss. I can understand why, but I'm much more of an imp. So let's see what happens in that regard. Okay, is that everything? Okay. Thank you, Dan. Oh, Gonzalez. I'm probably not the account for you. Okay, let's see what else we have here. So this is the last thing I think I'm going to spike fund, the last book at least. Okay. Why are the looters violently taking 1/3 of my stuff annually just to subsidize articulate people? Yeah, this is the premise of Atlas Shrugged, Noah. Yes, sir. Okay, let me get to this one. So as you all know, or some of you probably know, Dave Rubin calls me the Willy Wonka of politics. And I enjoy that a lot. And I very much think that the Johnny Depp version is better. If you want to be pedantic, the Johnny Depp version isn't a remake because that's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The other one's called Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. We're fighting here in Virginia against being turned into felons by local politicians over 2A issues, and it's easy to feel defeated. Appreciate your words and perspective. It really does help. You're fighting the good. You know what advantage you have? They've dropped their mask, and your fellow citizens can see that they've dropped their mask. So that is a very big advantage. I would also say it might be that Virginia's lost because politically you're going to have the spillover from the federal government. Like, look at Maryland. So that is a big problem for you guys. And as you know, this is not even a question. It might end up like Illinois, where you have downstate, which is, sure, there's blue in the sense of blue collar, but they're not, kind of Elizabeth Warren Democrats. And then, the red, but Chicago just runs the whole state. So that might end up happening to you. And I'm sure that's not a news to you either. Are you following guys like The Last American Vagabond? I'm not. As they cover the massive inconsistencies surrounding the virus and the Gates Foundation. I have not. I'm not at all. That's not something that's really that interesting to me. And I'm not that surprised, I guess I would say. Okay. So, I've been spike bunding a lot of books, signed books, which I enjoy. And to me, I always feel like if people are chipping in cash to me, and even though they're buying stuff just to annoy other people who are horrible and deserve to be annoyed, it's also ethical. It's the right thing to do for me to give back and produce content and have it be a nice circle, that snake eating its own tail. And that way it's kind of living the values of anarchism and so on and so forth. So this is, I was going to get a dust jacket. Now I don't know because I like the cover so much, the boards. This is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory from 1973. And it is signed by Roald Dahl. And that is his signature. I've looked and you can see. I love it when they sign something with a Sharpie because then if you look carefully, you can see it bleeds out the other end. So that is something I really appreciate. There was a paperback that was $100 cheaper. And I'm like, no. If I'm going to get one and it's spike funded, I might as well get the nice one for the shelf for the rest of my life. So this is really, really cool. Roald Dahl, let's talk about him. I've mentioned this several other times. He's a horrible human being. His wife, Patricia Neal, played Dominique in the movie The Fountainhead. She later had a stroke at a young age, and he had an affair with her nurse in front of her. She got better. She wrote a memoir, I've written a letter to her. And he's also like 6'6", and just nasty guy. But this is something this really means a lot to me because children's books were something that very much framed my current sensibility. They made me, I have this one quote of mine, which I like a lot, which is, hold on. No, I don't want to fuck up my own quote. Sometimes I have to look them up because I hate it when quotes like lose their precision and they start changing the words. So my exact quote, you're going to quote myself, make sure I do it correctly. We are born knowing that life is a magical adventure and it takes them decades to train us to believe otherwise. Yes, I'm going to retweet that again. So that having that sensibility from my favorite authors, E. Nesbitt, this kind of stuff really is a great way to have the white pill, to believe in magic in a literal sense. Hey, Michael, there is a YouTuber named Carolyn Borisenko you should check out. Would love you two to have a conversation. I'm not booking You're Welcome yet. I'm still doing the Dave Smith stuff. I'm going to be, by the way, at Freedom Fest, guys, on July 13th that week. So I hope to see you all there. It will be a great treat. Any thoughts on satanic pedophile stuff? Do you think any of it is true? And what does this mean for America? I don't think that, I've done a lot of reading about Satanism. I don't think it's a thing. I do think maybe it's a thing that people like to engage in this kind of iconography so they feel like a badass. But in terms of the literal satanic underground church, it doesn't make sense to me. According to Christianity, Satan is the loser. Why are you betting on the loser? And I think that's quite a Venn diagram to have like people who want to have sex with kids, people who worship the devil. They're both like huge, not small enough, minorities of the population. So to have that overlap, and how are they going to even know each other? It just seems a bit of a stretch to me. But I wouldn't put anything past these people, to be fair. But that doesn't add up to me at all. Okay. And the last thing I have, this was really, 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 really cool. So this is something I've been doing a lot of reading recently was about the Haymarket massacre and the anarchists who were murdered there by the state. They were pardoned posthumously. There's a statue to them. One of them had said as he was being hanged, and there's like 3 versions of his quote. He didn't look it up on Twitter. One day our voices will be louder than those that you strangle today, or our voices will speak louder than those that you strangle today. So they were basically, have you heard, hold on a second. Sorry, guys. I should put these on the screen. Hold on. That's what I'm going to start doing. That's a better way of doing it. Have you heard the evidence that the MH370 flight stayed in the correct timeline and we warped? I think we're in the correct timeline. I am confident, increasingly confident that we reverted at least to the correct timeline. Did you watch the Atlas Shrugged movies? Yes, I saw the first one in the theater. I thought it was absolutely dreadful. There were barely any vampires. It didn't make sense. They should have been closer to the books with all the blood drinking. Okay, so this is written. So I didn't know if I wanted to get this book. And then I'm like, because it was like $150. And I'm like, oh, well, if everyone's shipping in $5, it adds up pretty quick, right? So I got it. It's from, let me check the date. It's like the heaviest book I own, other than probably Atlas Shrugged. No, it's heavier than Atlas Shrugged. 1889. 1889. And this is, the price tag says 400, but that's incorrect. Hold on. This is Anarchy and Anarchists. So it's got this gold. It looks like the cover of Ego and Hubris, to be honest. And this was ghostwritten for Captain Shock. He was the head of the police that put the anarchists to death. This book, which I've read, it's public domain, you can download it, is a defense of the state's version of why they killed these, I think it was 7 anarchists. Hold on a second. And I'm going to explain why this book's important. Have you seen the Chekists? Thoughts? I have not seen it. I'm sorry, but I'm reading right now a great book about that era. Okay, so that's this. And let me show you some of the illustrations in here. God, it's just so, oh, this is gorgeous. This is gorgeous. Here, you can see it's just full of stuff like this. I mean, this must have been exorbitant at the time. This is one of the really deluxe, fancy. Let's see if we get Louis Ling in here. I know at one point in this book, they talk about what a hunk Louis Ling is. It's really funny. 633, when Louis Ling blew his jaw off. 633. It looks much better when it's in your hands than when it's scanned, I gotta tell you. So yeah, hold on a second. Oh, I don't want to, this is hard to open. So if you see there, he blew off his own jaw. So they have an illustration. So what this posits is, so here's what happened in Haymarket and why it's a very important moment in American history. How many times have you violated lockdown orders? Oh, the laws don't apply to me. I'm blue check. I honestly don't even know what the orders were. Like, I think they were pretty ambiguous. They weren't being enforced. I mean, not to be glib. So what happened was there was mass movements in Chicago. There was a meeting at Haymarket Square, peaceful. A bomb was thrown. To this day, no one knows from who. Some cops were killed. Cops started pushing back. It was a big mayhem. They arrested 7 anarchists, some of whom were not even there. Were not even pretended to be there. And the claim is because these men were advocating for the violent overthrow of the state, they were guilty of murder because they basically started a chain of events for this to happen. Now, there's 2 ways of looking at this. One is, which is the labor perspective, you're killing people for their political views. 2 is, you do not have a right to conspire to overthrow the government, especially when that right results in people being killed. So they were found, there was a lot of weird questions with the trial. You can look at this. They were found guilty of murder. Again, they were guilty of murder even though they weren't there. They were sentenced to death. What was hilarious is a lot of them, their defense, because they were surprised at first that the state was going to go for murder. If they were going to go for conspiracy or manslaughter, then the defendants would have been more scared, but they weren't scared because they're like, okay, for murder, really? They went for it. So if the jury was going to find guilty of anything, it had to be murder. They didn't have like another option, right? And some of the men had alibis. They're like, I wasn't even there. This is crazy. They traced the bomb that was thrown to bombs that were similar to Louis Ling that he had at his house. He was a bomb maker, admitted. And Louis Ling's lawyer says, he has a right to have dynamite in his house. That doesn't mean anything. Like, that was the defense. Like, what are you going to say? And they, the newspapers turned the people against them. They were found guilty. They were sentenced to death. They appealed. They appealed to the governor. This was an international outcry. And some of them were said, okay, we won't kill you if you disavow. And they refused, and they were hanged. And in fact, one of them, who was a newspaper editor, he wasn't some kind of thug. As he's being hanged, he goes, "Can I say a few words to the people?" And as he starts talking, they pulled it and killed him. So this is the government's perspective on, and it's going to look really nice on my shelf, I think. And that is a treasure and a half. Is that Medusa? Yeah, it's Medusa. All right. So that is that. That's all I had to show you guys. Let me just take this price sticker off. It's not $400. Oh, and I bought it on 420. It took me 2 months, almost a month and 3 quarters to get here. Can you believe it? Ridiculous. Outrageous, sir. Oh man, this Sunday thing is going to be really, really, really great. Okay, second. Sorry, I'm just getting this price tag off. What else did I want to talk about, if anything? I guess that was pretty much it. Yeah. Oh, I just am curious. If you guys go to my locals, malice.locals.com, I'm gonna be plotting my next. I'm not just angry. I'm furious. Have you read Curtis Yarvin's new stuff? I see he's doing quite a lot of interviews right now. Malice Moldbug when? I just told you, Sunday, 8 o'clock on this right here. 8 o'clock. It's going to be epic. Oh, super sticker. That's cool. You could put them on the screen now. That's really cool. Get this off. Sticker is done. I just tore a little piece of paper because it's so thin. That's okay. That's okay. This goes in here. I like to keep the receipts for like really old, cool stuff, because then like you look back, you're like, how much did I pay for this? I'm like, oh yeah. That is that. That is that. Who was more hated in her time, Ayn Rand or Candace Owens? How many Twitter followers would Rand have if she were in her prime today? I think Rand was much more hated in her time. Much. I think Candace is in many ways playing a wrestling heel. She's just saying things that make boomers feel comfortable in their point of view. And yeah, she's fighting for us. You know, why can't you be like this black conservative? And Twitter followers, I feel like Rand wouldn't like Twitter because it's too glib. So I don't think that would be her shtick. Have you still been lifting, bro? I have. You can see the vascularity still there. That's pretty fun. What do leftists think of home invasion? Do they think it's a real thing or just some failure of the system? If you mean by the cops, I don't think they know how to grapple with it. They don't really talk about it. It's something that's just like they don't know it doesn't port into their framework, so they don't really address it. It's very telling, I think. If we ever turn on Molebug, dibs on Molebug man. What? I don't know what that means. What? Okay. What do you think of the statement, slavery wasn't abolished, it was reformed? Candace. I think that is something that's too clever by half. I think yeah, it's. I do not agree with this perspective. Good Lord. Oh God. Oh. All right. Jesus Christ. It's just like it reminds me when Trump during the primaries was pretending to be very pro-life, and he's like, yeah, we should definitely lock up abortion doctors, and all the pro-life people who are actually pro-life are like, what? We don't want that. Or like some do, but that's not their public position. So he's just, kind of cosplaying. He's like, oh yeah, I guess that's what they want. It was just funny because it's just in being from New York, being from Brooklyn, not that I'm, friggin' Ice Cube over here, not that he's from New York, but just the thought of going up to someone who's like even a secretary and saying, oh, you're in a plantation. Oh, okay. Yeah, this conversation is going to go a long distance. Yarvin makes some compelling arguments toward monarchism, starting from similar premises as your own. Why do you feel anarchy is preferable in light of his arguments? I think anarchy is preferable because I would rather have the flexibility to choose protection rather. I don't think Moldbug is saying monarchism versus anarchism. I think he's saying monarchism versus democracy. But in terms of why would I want to, it's like getting married to some politician, like monarchism, and there's no divorce. It's really, I'll ask him about it on Sunday. That would be a great question to ask then. Why are anarchists at best thought of as skateboarders and punks, but more often as terrorists and communists, obsessed with death and destruction, rather than a serious political view? Oh, that's easy, because when anarchism started as a political movement in the 1800s, they were about many ways death and destruction. They killed McKinley. They killed many other people. They were constantly using Louis Ling, who in his speech was being sentenced to death, say, if you come at us with batons, we'll come at you with dynamite. That's right. I'm for violence. This is what we are for. So this is historically accurate. In fact, in Britain, which you are from, the Sex Pistols song Anarchy in the UK, and the chorus goes, I'm an antichrist, I'm an anarchist. It means I'm a terrorist. This is what that meant there. It was E. Nesbitt, my favorite author, who I mentioned before. There's a book of hers called, I think, The Wonderful Garden, and I have I tore a page where the kids are looking at something and go, oh, it's a nihilist bomb, run away. So this was a thing back in the day. Like, they were blowing things up, and this was their idea of, we're going to make the revolution happen imminently. They were influenced in many ways by this Marxist idea of the end of history. What do you think of Trump calling a war on anarchists? Who's going to be the generals? That's really cute that he would say that. This is smart of him, now that it's clicking. Instead of saying a war on ideology or terror, that's an action. If he's saying a war on anarchists, he's saying there are certain specific people you better disavow, just like you've been telling me to disavow certain specific people. And if you don't, you're going to have a problem. So he's going to force the left to disavow their own. That's going to be interesting to see. Did you see Thad's Russell interview with Moldbug? No. And how can you get him on Your Welcome? I'm going to get him on this stream on Sunday. Your Welcome is whenever he's in New York, assuming we don't have a big slapping bitch fight on Sunday. Slavery wasn't abolished, it was reformed. Only 3/5 true. Careful with that joke, it's an antique. They aren't different things. His argument for absolute monarchism is the same way a private company's founder is absolute monarch. It's 100% compatible with anarchism. Well, then it's not. Sure, if you want to just have this kind of wordplay, that's fine. If it's just like, I have to subscribe to a security service and I call the head instead of the CEO, the king, it's that's just semantic. What will it take for the right to at least gain ground in the cultural war? You really think the right hasn't gained ground in the cultural war? How often do people use the term incel? Where does that come from? These are right-wing terms. The left is taking memes come out of, if not the right, at least certainly the middle and center right, and a sense of an anti-left perspective. Come on. There's so many aspects, Twitter, and there's so many aspects of the right winning culturally. The fact that so many of these people are laughingstocks now. Not that, I disagree with CNN, it's that these people are a joke. The fact that you have journalists, these aren't even harmless. Like this guy in Long Island, it's just a harmless journalist. He's not some big jihadi. And people feel comfortable, private citizens, going up to him, putting a camera in his face, and looking at him as if he's about to rob someone. These are huge, huge incremental steps toward the right direction, the correct direction. James Lindsay has been comparing ANCAPs with social justice warriors by their use of postmodernism. What? Would love to see you two have a conversation. Thoughts? Everything I don't like is the same as everything else I don't like. I don't even know where he's rapping. This is that kind of Hitler's a liberal kind of mentality that it's just ridiculous to me. I don't consider myself. Maybe he's thinking about Thad. Sure, he could talk to Thad. I'm not big on postmodernism, and I don't go stuff my ANCAP. Your optimism has been helping me a lot. I enjoy your weekly talks with Dave very much, twice weekly, if you count his show. I've been having a lot of fun with them, and I know Dave has too. And it's a real great excuse for us to chat about things from a common perspective, even though we often see things a little bit differently. My brother and I just bought veryfail.com. Oh my God, are you serious? That was available? They're yours for the right prank idea. Thanks for spreading joy and mischief in these crazy times. Oh, man. Well, I hope you're redirecting it to tomwoods.com right now. Like, do that right away. And I'll tell him that, please don't tweet this at him, guys. When we're at Freedom Fest and I'm on stage with him, I'll announce it there. I'll be like, oh, hey, Tom, by the way, you should check out veryfail.com. And it'll go toward his site. Candace is actually right there. Look at sharecroppers during and after Reconstruction. Oh, that's true. No. I'm reading a book on my shelf from the 1876 election. The cathedral history of it, for them, it goes Lincoln is assassinated, slaves are freed, Jim Crow, civil rights era. They completely forget Reconstruction. They completely forget the North during this period, how horrible it was. Absolutely right. It wasn't as simple as slavery, but there was not the willpower of the North, nor the care in the South to have any sort of equitable treatment for blacks in that period. Many of them had been illiterate by law, so they're not going to be very educated, and it's not their fault. It's like, look at these idiots. They can't read, even though it's illegal for them to read. This was the logic at the time. So that period was very, very disturbing to read about, because they don't talk about it at all. Anthony Burgess told people he wanted America to become a monarchy ruled by the House of Stuart, like I mentioned in the book. But because that was unlikely to happen, he was practically basically an anarchist, which I find funny. My friend has a keychain that has the anarchist symbol, and then is greater than the monarchist, it's a crown, is greater than a ballot box. So that's the Hoppe perspective, and I don't think it's that nuts. Do you think there's an inherent overlap between antisocial behaviors and anarchism? Do you have to be disagreeable? Well, I think I'm the bee's knees. I think there is. I think feminism has done an enormous job in making taboo things that lots of us realize are obvious, and understandably so, because back in the day, you would have misogyny, and if a woman's in the office, it would be like, oh, you're just saying that because you're on your period. And to have men feel comfortable dismissing your ideas because of this is really kind of unfair and unreasonable, right? And because of that, to some extent, and other factors, it became a big taboo to ascribe someone's politics or their worldview as a function of their mental illness or their background or something like that. And I think that when you, behind closed doors, you stop and talk, you're like, yeah, he thinks this because he's low status and this would make him higher status. So they kind of dance around it. But yeah, I don't know, but I don't think lots of early anarchists would be very pro-social, but theoretically they're for the working man, right? I do think there is probably a correlation between antisocial and libertarianism. I think I would say that, more broadly speaking, is probably the case, especially from the experience of what I've seen. Hold on a second. I miss it. Okay, here we go. You bigged up the New Coven on Twitter. I did. I love that album. Do you like any other drum and bass music? I didn't know that they were drum and bass. So my buddy Trey, I went to visit him in DC, and he introduced me to melodic dubstep. And since I'm a grandfather, I don't know what the kids are listening to today, and it blew me away, because especially blasting the music, it was like listening to the music in 3D, is best I can describe it. So I'll tell you the other albums he gave me, and I think they were great, and maybe you like them and maybe not, but here they are. He has this playlist he's been putting together for like 20 years, so it's like 3 days long, literally. Or no, it's like 2 weeks long. The other artists are playlist, melodic dubstep, Illenium, ILLENIUM, and Crystal Skies, and AU5, I guess it's Gold 5 maybe, and Dobbin, DABIN. Those are the others. Your thoughts on Cumtown, Nick Mullen. I don't really know anything about them. People have asked me to do the show, and he hasn't asked me to, but I would do it, of course, easily. You were looking for a word a week ago. The breakdown of social norms, anomie, almost always confused with anarchy. I thought anomie is much more of a psychological state when someone feels very depressed and alone. It's not a sociological term. The lack of the usual social ethic. Oh, it is. What am I thinking of then? Huh. Interesting. I'm thinking of something else then. Interesting. Thank you. I agree that the right is gaining ground. For example, losers are less revered, and it's obvious that they are. Yeah. Anytime when you have Chris Matthews, Cernovich points that, Chris Matthews pointing out that we need a strong alpha male, and Trump isn't one. This is not a left-wing perspective. But they dance back and forth as it suits their purposes, of course. How is balancing innovation and preservation of culture different or better than conservatives driving the speed limit? Driving the speed limit means you're bringing no ideas to the table. You're simply reacting entirely to roads that have been built by somebody else and a speed which has been decided by somebody else, and you bring nothing to the table. Balancing innovation, I don't know what that means. That's one of those terms that sounds like it makes sense and it doesn't. I don't think there's balancing innovation and preservation of culture. I don't think innovation contradicts culture. I think innovation preserves culture inherently. So the speed limit thing is their political stances. So it's in terms of what issues are we caring about today. For example, what if everyone just really started caring about trans people today? You'd seem crazy, right? Because we're caring about black people this week. But the trans problems all went away. What about the Muslims? They just vanished? They just vanished. The kids in cages, remember them? Well, went away. So conservative driving the speed limit means they are reacting to the roads and the speeds which the left is constructing on a regular basis. Oh, hold on. Jesus Christ. Okay. Have you seen The Lives of Others? I have not. Fictional film about the Stasi. I don't know if you'd like it or not, but interested in your thoughts. Oh God, the Stasi. Jeez. Yeah, they're no joke. I've not seen it though, but thank you for the recommendation. I'll try to look at it. Can't remember your take on Suicide of the West. Finished it, and at least the first half was excellent. I feel like you said you didn't like it. He covers Jonathan Haidt's themes much before. I think I gave it 5 stars on my Goodreads. I thought this was an absolute. Didn't I think it was a masterpiece? Because he also, his book about the managerial revolution, I thought was absolutely terrible. Burnham, Suicide, the West. I have a signed copy of this, which I'm very, very proud of. Yeah, 5 stars. This is the highest possible recommendation. It's a must read. Absolute must read. That's what I thought. Okay. Check out Thad's Russell's latest interview about carceral feminism. No. Would love to hear your take. I almost never watch podcasts. It's not some way that's fun for me to consume knowledge and information. Black unemployment was better between 1850 and 1950 than after the Civil Rights Movement. This is a very factual but not truthful sentence. And let me give you just one anecdote, and anecdotes are not disprovable, but this is telling, because unemployment can mean a lot of things. Langston Hughes, the poet laureate of the Harlem Renaissance, was just amazing, was a student at Columbia here in New York. He couldn't get a job. He went to get a job as a florist, as a delivery boy, and they said to him to his face in New York, oh, we didn't ask for a colored boy. So employment rates might have been higher in terms of menial jobs and so on and so forth. But in terms of any semblance of, it's very much a know your place kind of employment. So even if unemployment was higher, you can easily make the argument, yeah, that price was worth paying. Currently reading Haidt's book. It's phenomenal. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I adore that book. Watched any good gameplay playthroughs yesterday? Yes, Little Nightmares was very, very good. That was the one I just finished watching, and I really very much enjoyed it. Very much. If you're interested in a chiller form of dubstep, check out Seven Lions. I'm just going to do what Trey says. When you find someone who knows good music, just follow their orders. Moderate Republican is $20,000. I also have fucktards.org if someone wants to buy it, I guess. You were thinking of ennui as the depressed word. Yeah. Oh, you're right. Thank you. That is what I was thinking. Good work. Sorry to be off topic. North Korean news disappeared. What's up with Kim? Nothing's up with him. So I covered this on this Monday on Nightshade. I'll be glad to cover it again. So since 2018, I believe, South Korea and North Korea had twice daily phone calls. And on Monday, North Korea stopped taking their calls. And their beef is that there have been activists from the South who have been flying balloons with memory sticks. Think how much information you could include a memory stick. You could have all of Wikipedia. And that would really destroy the regime information. And the South Korean government is trying to put a stop to this, but this is North Korea's big issue with them. Kim's fine. He was always fine, as I said at the time. Maybe I'm confusing these then. I'm thinking it's excellent and confused by what I misremembered. Yeah, the one I hated was Managerial Revolution because he makes several very explicit predictions, none of which came true and are embarrassing in retrospect. Did you see the paper signed by 1,200 medical professionals that is encouraging people to go out and protest because racism is a worse virus than corona? The book I'm reading right now, The Red Decade by Eugene Lyons. Right now, this is not new. Let me tell you what I just read it, this part just today. Hold on, this is really key. So when Stalin was having his show trials, where people and their families were killed, being sent to the concentration camps, when they were being signed into forced confessions of things that they could not possibly do. Like, for example, someone was saying, oh, I met with Trotsky and I gave him secret information, even though it was clearly established Trotsky was like in Mexico at the time. Like, they had names and dates. It wasn't just vague. And they just went up and said it. And everyone on the earth was like, holy crap, what have been done to these men, hardcore communists, to confess to these literally impossible crimes. And a bunch of Americans, I think it was 150, came out and they signed a letter endorsing what Stalin did. And it said, should not a country recognized, and listen to how they word it, just like nowadays, just weasel. Shouldn't a country recognized as engaged in improving conditions for all its people? So that's the framework. Okay, since we're dealing with the Soviet Union, which everyone knows is improving conditions for everyone there, that's the basis of this. Or not agrees with all the means whereby this is brought about. Yeah, he starved millions of people, but it's better for everyone, except the people who got starved, but they don't count because they're dead. Be permitted to decide for itself what measures of protection are necessary against treasonable plots to assassinate and overthrow its leadership and involve it in war with foreign powers. You can't blame Stalin for torturing and killing loyal communists and their families and beating them till their eyeballs fall out. What about Hitler and Trotsky? 150 Americans, including people like Dorothy Parker, many writers for the New Yorker. This is not new. Granville Hicks, who's a name to this day. It's just amazing. Colonel Raymond Robbins. I don't know who that is. Just disgusting, disgusting people. Okay. Never had a leftist answer this. Who does not count as a worker when authors and intellectuals count? Is it just anyone I don't like? I think what they would say is financiers, lawyers, but often it does mean everyone you don't like. North Korea, when you're there, the Soviet Union has the hammer and sickle. And North Korea goes, oh, we're totally different. We have the hammer and sickle and the writing brush because we include intellectuals into our party. So it's completely innovative. Moldbug talks up the Red Decade in his interview with Justin Murphy, I believe. Oh, okay. So once again, me and him are on the same page. Me and him also came to the Machiavellians independently. Point was your take on carceral feminism. The feminist war on crime, the unexpected role of women's liberation in mass incarceration. Yeah, I had that tweet, which went pretty wide last week, about how the next cultural shift is realizing how so much of the so-called coddling of minorities is just appeasement of bourgeois women and their values. Did they tell the 1201st medical professional to duck off when they went to sign the recommendation? Bugman is like soy boy. It's a meme. I know what Bugman is and bug chasing. I asked John DeVore about it when he was on You're Welcome a couple of years ago. He hadn't even heard the term incel. I was ahead of the curve. Was surprised you hadn't read Anatomy of the State. Have you read any Rothbard? Yes, I have read The Progressive Era and his History of the American Right that he was a part of, the kind of memoir one. Those were the two that I've read of him. I forget what it's called. I think it was published posthumously. Ugh. All right. God, Sunday's going to be so good. Sunday is going to be so good. I am going to I got to figure out where I'm going to travel for my ice cream trip. I got to figure out what's the best ice cream place in America. Is there a Trotsky in this revolution? Who would be the Trotsky? I mean, Trotsky? Who would be the Trotsky? The Trotsky would be like a Republican, right? What would be the Trotsky? Is it Bill Kristol? I mean, they are Trotskyists. I mean, he is kind of a Trotsky here, but no one wants to kill him. He has no sway. Who's like an embarrassed, formerly, like George Will? Maybe? I don't know. Have you seen any of the circus north of the border? Today, news leaked that the Foreign Affairs Minister owes $1.2 million to China, where a federal member of parliament is facing criminal harassment charges as April 10th. We are way more broken than the U.S. I love Canada so much. I adore it. And I adore how like delusional the Canadians are about how much better they are than Americans. Then you look at Rob Ford, who just should have been president. My God, it's just you people. But I've been there twice in the last year. I mean, Montreal and Toronto. I just had the absolute best time, and I'll go back in a heartbeat. It's also funny being just so nasty to Canadians because they don't know how to handle it and then they snap. Okay, I am going to bounce. I will see you all. I just want to do this impromptu to show you the cool stuff, the cool loot. Love the collabs with you and Dave. You are the Barry Bonds of Twitter. I don't know what that is. You see the home run guy? Sounds like a home run guy. I know he's a baseball player, right? Home runs? Does he steal things? Is he a thief? You call me a thief and a liar? Please join us at malice.locals.com. There's like 5,000 people there, and it's very populated. So another thing is like all these stuff that's being spike funded. I go down these rabbit holes, and I'm reviewing them all. So I have every cereal, 100 boxes in my house. I put it on Locals. You could just search for that. 100 scented candles, 150 scented candles, 100 bath soaps. That's on Instagram.com/shaving soaps. Excuse me. Yeah, /shaving soaps. Jams and jellies. Now I have 100 salsas, which I'm eating my way through. And that is the list. And it's fun to do. So, I hope you guys are having fun. I really feel like the worst, it's getting easier and easier to white pill people. And to show them how great this country is and this world is and how we have so much to look forward to. And that's going to be, of course, that's the next book, which I'm writing right now, which I'm recalibrating it because I'm not really writing it around Camus as much as it's not going to be it's not going to be structured that way. It's just going to be straight up the white pill, but it's coming to me. So I'm just very, very hopeful for this country And who else? I said that on Twitter. I said, it was a sincere question. I said, is anyone on Twitter having more fun than me? Because you know why I love Twitter? Because I don't have to leave the house. And 1,000 likes, and no one had an answer. And that was really kind of cool and funny. I'm looking lean. I like it. Okay. Stay home. Stay safe. And I will talk to you all. See you on the Twitter, and I'll talk to you all on Sunday. And thank you for all the support. Seriously, I quite literally couldn't do this without you guys.